With week 11 of the college football season in the books, several teams were looking to continue jockeying for position inside of the college football playoff committee's head, while some are just hoping just to get into the conversation, and others hoping for redemption in their conference, while others attempt to create their own magic while averting disaster. These stories and more on this edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you all so much for being here with us on this edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Of course, you gabbing with the one and only Mr. CeeLo, and I must tell you, ladies, gents, it's supposed to be cold tonight. It's supposed to be cold. So make sure that y'all are bundled up and make sure them kiddos don't walk out the door without something on them. Because if your kiddos are hard-headed like mine, they will walk out the door with their hair wet and a fleece on.
Bruh.
Unreal. I'm telling you, the price these kids are willing to pay just to try to be cool. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing wonderful. I am as well. And I must tell you, I am absolutely ecstatic because the college football season is slowly coming down to the end. And as you know, the committee will be making its decision tomorrow night as to what the rankings and what the playoff bracket is going to look like. And there was a couple of games out here, guys, that I'm going to tell you was just absolutely worth watching. And I'll be honest with you, this is going to be a fun square of events. I mean, there's nothing else that you can say about it. But let us go into this week. You know, a lot of y'all, and I know Brad's going to be disappointed in what I chose to pick up on, but hey, it's all good. Let's look at Friday night, as I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, Friday nights are always scary, but unless they're in October. You guys know what I said about October and Friday nights, but they were able to come out of this with a 38-17 win over Northwestern, as Malachi Lemon once again is showing why he is one of the best players and arguably one of the best receivers in the country with 11 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown. And he also scored on the ground. So once again, USC is really starting to position themselves as a potential suitor in that Big Ten championship game. So, I'm going to be honest with you. If Indiana or Ohio State were to slip up,
Game over.
This could be huge. This could be absolutely huge as I look at this USC football team. Despite their loss at Notre Dame, you look at how they're able to execute and be able to do what they do. They're setting themselves up nicely to get a shot at this Big Ten championship. Ohio State 34, Purdue 10. Now, Purdue did go up 3-0, but then that was before Ohio State decided they're going to just run off 24 unanswered in the second quarter. As Julian Sand is getting a lot of attention. He had ended up with 303 yards on the day, doing a great job. And I'm going to be honest, probably the one weakness that this team has, they really don't have a sustainable running game. But these guys play like they're the men. Like they play like they're the effing man. Guys, just in case you didn't know, we have us a sponsor. Because we are the effing man. You know, the type of man who shows up. The man who gets it done. The one who doesn't need a filter, a hashtag, or permission. He's not just a man. He's the effing man. TF Man, the whipped tallow cream from LV, made from grass-fed beef tallow, squalene, and pure grit. No chemicals, no perfume, just hard-earned hydration for hands that build, lift, and live. LV, all natural skincare, rebuilt for real people. TF Man, because being the effing man means taking care of your own damn skin. And guys, when you try this TF Man, make sure you go over to the website. If you use the QR code and you go over, type in the code FRIENDS20 and you'll get 20% off your first purchase. Make sure you scan the QR code that's going to be up on the screen real quick. I'll put it up there for a second, and I'll even put the link down below so that you guys can go over there. There's some great people. I know them personally. They've got a great product. I use it when I get out the shower, and I use it right before I go to work. Because, guys, if you're going to smell great and look fantastic, you need your LV. Because guess what? It's not enough to be a man. You want to be the effing man. Like the Ohio State Buckeyes think they are. All right, and a lot of people wanted to go into this game. I look at the Omar Cooper toe tap touchdown, which you guys have seen a million times by now. And I saw Josh Pate go and talk about this game like, oh yeah, they get a lot of credit for winning this game. And I'm like, you give them some credit, but you don't give them no credit for having to squeak out a win against an 0-6 conference foe. I get it. It's in Happy Valley. I get it. But no. And I tell you, Brad already knows. I already felt a certain type of way about Indiana and Texas A&M. And now I feel a type of way about Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas Tech. That's right. I mean, don't get me wrong. That last drive, Mendoza, was actually pretty daggum impressive, but it wasn't impressive enough for me to say that Indiana stays at number 2. Because I'll be honest with you, A&M is just running over people. They smacking you down whether they in your building or you in theirs. And that's another story for another day. Indiana, all I can say is they better get it together. Because Singleton almost had a career game on them, and he's only toted the ball 10 times. Alabama 20, LSU 9. Now, Simpson had 277 in the score, and Bernard had 79 yards receiving. This has got to be worrisome if you're Alabama. Now, I get it. You got a game this week that's got some serious implications that could really knock you down, but how you going to be worried about a look-ahead game when, realistically, you can lose another game and then nobody's going to say anything? And I don't like that. I'm hearing Josh Pate and then some of everybody saying, oh, Alabama can lose another one, they can still get in. I'm like, what? No. Well, I mean, they can get in, but they shouldn't be that high. But as I said, Alabama can't run the ball. And that's going to be a huge problem when it comes to the college football playoff. You watch. Not like this other team, number 5, Georgia, whom is slowly started to get that run game going. And I had told Brad this, and Brad can sit there and he can vouch for me. I said what worried me about Georgia was their inability to run the football. And they walked into Mississippi State, and they proceeded to take Nate Frazier and run that thing down their throat. He only had 12 carries for 181 yards. And look, listen, Mississippi State, you can't play that game. You have to stop Georgia's running game. You cannot let them run a rush shot all over you. You got to make Gunnar Stockton beat you. I'm just saying. There ain't no way in the world I'm letting Georgia run the football. I have got to take that away. But ultimately, Frazier had 181 on the ground. And unfortunately, that wasn't enough. Unfortunately for Mississippi State, that was more than enough for them to fall to the dogs. Well, the real dogs, as Brad would say. As for Ole Miss, they blanked the Citadel.
What? You weak, pathetic fool.
I had somebody on my other channel tell me that the SEC plays the toughest schedule, and they got the dang Citadel right here. Really? And don't give me no mess about Ole Miss's schedule. It was trash too. But Trendy Chambliss had over 300 yards passing and 3 scores. Wallace III had 8 grabs, 87 yards, as Ole Miss just kind of frolics into what will possibly be an opportunity at a SEC championship, given if what happens with Alabama and Texas A&M. But they're right now assured to be in the college football playoff. Number 10, Notre Dame, 49, Navy 10, as quarterback C.J. Carr threw for 218 yards, 3 touchdowns. As quarterback, Navy backup quarterback Woodson, who was named starter about an hour and a half before kickoff, had 101 yards and a score against that Irish defense, but it was mostly in the first half. As Malachi Fields for Notre Dame had 4 catches, 97 yards. And Notre Dame pretty much dominated this game from start to finish. This game never seemed, in doubt, as the Irish go to 7-2 and more than likely are going to move up one spot. Virginia finally falls to Wake Forest, whom is quietly 6-3. As Kalen was 18 of 28 for 145, Taylor for Virginia was 98, and needless to say, Wake Forest has always been one of those teams that they silently beat you. They just kind of go out there and just kind of chip, 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 chip. They had 64 yards passing and 139 yards on the ground. How do you lose this game? Well, I'm glad you asked, compadre. Well, Virginia had been living dangerously all season. Let's look in that little category called turnovers. Now, see, what happens is, ladies and gentlemen, when you kind of live above your means, and I'm not saying that's what Virginia was doing, but they had a lot of games, like the Florida State game, for instance, where they had a lot of turnovers gifted to them. And when that happens and you get a game where the opposing squad is not giving you freebies, then it leaves something to be like, how are we going to handle this? So you're looking at a Wake Forest team that you outrushed by almost 30 yards and you outpassed them by a total of 100. But the problem is what you could not do was make this team go away because you kept shooting yourself in the foot with turnovers, which many people kept saying that this team was living over its head, and ultimately they were going to come crashing down to earth. And of course, that eventually was the case. And now the football team known as the Virginia Cavaliers, unfortunately, their dream season is more likely over, and the ACC as a whole is pretty much disheveled. As we now look at these teams, as Virginia's got its first loss, you got Georgia Tech with its first loss, Pittsburgh with its first loss, SMU won, Duke won. You've got 5 teams vying for that spot. So needless to say, most of these teams are going to work themselves out as we go along. But unfortunately, as I said, for Virginia, their dream season ultimately is now hanging in the balance with just a couple of weeks to go. Then we see Louisville. Once again, the ACC is just kind of carnivoring itself. It's as they were taken out 29-26 at home by a California Bear team that is pretty impressive. When we look at this football team, you look at them and you say, "Ooh." Miller Moss, you would have never thought at the end, with a game with Miller Moss in it, that he would have been outstaged. As the Golden Bears were able to turn over the Louisville Cardinal and run up 427 yards of offense, and yeah, that's unheard of when you look at a team like Louisville that's very good defensively, but yet the California Golden Bears came into Louisville, took care of business, and were able to win this game in overtime. As I said, the ACC is just poaching each other right now, and unfortunately, it's going to be their downfall. But at the same time, when we hear all this noise about the SEC is going to poach each other, ain't no different than what the ACC is. Please stop with that. They're doing it all over this conference as well.
Stop the cap.
Then we see Vanderbilt escape with their lives in their building, which, and I said before, I don't hold you this as a good win when you're playing a team that's only got 4 wins on the season and you're in your building. No. Pavia did throw for over 300 again. Darren there threw for 400. As Cobb for Auburn had 115 yards rushing, and Coleman had 143 yards receiving for the Auburn Tigers. But like I said, Pavia had a very productive game, 377 and 3 scores through the air. And I've said it many times, I did not think that Pavia had it in him. But once again, he proved me wrong, and he also had 112 yards rushing. So I guess he's listening to my show, and he's hearing me dog him out, saying that he's not on the same level as Haynes King. So ultimately, look, I got to tip my hat to Pavia, but yeah, y'all are not playoff. This is not a playoff team. I mean, if Georgia Tech's no more of a playoff team, then this team is not either. Miami takes out a very not so good Syracuse football team, 38-10. As Carson Beck threw for 247, and Marion had 3 catches, 116 yards. As the Miami Hurricanes get back on track and get back in the win column, as they attempt to make a strong finish to their season and possibly keep their slim hopes of a college football playoff berth alive. Wisconsin pulling arguably one of the biggest upsets of the weekend. Wisconsin looked like a team that was just dead in the water, and they're able to just come in and Camp Randall and knock off the Washington Huskies, a team that felt like their college football playoff hopes were still alive. They had the games to do it and get in, but unfortunately now this will end it. And what a season it was for the Huskies. Unfortunately, they were not able to make that run as the Huskies fall short at Camp Randall. But let us get into the big matchups of the weekend and what get Mr. CeeLo's big takes of it. The first one I want to go over with you guys is going to be the 18-16, how do I say this, marathon that is the Oregon Ducks and the Iowa Hawkeyes. And guys, I called this. I even had it. Any of the guys that work with me, they saw I had this game picked. I was the lone person that picked Iowa. And I'm going to tell you what I picked it on. Iowa is like that basketball team that uses up every second of the shot clock before they take a shot. They do not deviate from what they do, which is they want to keep the pace at their pace. They ain't trying to play at your pace. They want to play at their own pace. That means running the ball and taking care of the ball, which was not a good thing for them. They had 2 fumbles lost in this horrible game, which cost them. And I don't want to say Oregon needs to be worried. I think they do need to be concerned a little bit. Because if a team that can run the football gets out there and they start slowing them down, they get you caught up in trying to play their game. And when they can do that, they don't necessarily make you make mistakes, but they get you out of a rhythm. They play with a type of control that gets you out of a rhythm. You catch yourself playing at their rhythm. And that's never a good thing when you're a team like Oregon that likes to play with tempo. You know, they ended up going 3 of 10 on third downs, whereas Iowa was 5 of 13. You look at the total yardage, and yeah, it is deceiving, 373 to 239. But the reality of it is, when you sit and you look at the times that this Oregon defense had chances, they couldn't get it done. But you look at the way Gronowski was able to control the pace of this game for Iowa, and then when they got in and took the lead, the only thing I said is that they scored too fast. I mean, I get it. You don't want to not get in. But and again, it was a situation where I'm like, when they got in, I was like, oh, damn, they scored too fast. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, when they kept throwing the ball on the goal line. That was what I was really sitting there thinking. I was like, man, this is huge. You know, you think back to the 2 incompletions, and it's like, yeah. Because, you know, like I said, Iowa plays at their own pace. They eat up the clock, and they do not have any reservations about it. They go at their own turtleistic pace, and yeah, I just think it doesn't sound like much. But I thought when I looked up at the clock and it said that there was, you know, $1:51 left, I was like, yeah. But Iowa wasn't able to pull off the upset. They gave a valiant effort. You can't do nothing but talk good about the Iowa Hawkeyes. They've been one of those teams that, and they've been this way the last couple of years. They're not going to blow you up with points. They're going to play really good, tough defense, and they're going to score when they want, or when they can, if you will. I guess can is the better word for it. But Iowa goes to 6-3 and probably out of the playoff committee's top 25. Oregon gets a huge win and stays alive. They've still got one more major matchup, and I think a lot of what people, and myself included, are saying is Oregon really that good, or is Iowa really that good? Because, I mean, they've been able to do some things, and it's been impressive. Noah Whittington had 17 carries, 118 yards. Jordan Davidson also added 52 yards on the ground. Dante Moore also added 46. But as a whole, Oregon was able to run for 261 on the ground. But look at where this game was. I mean, you think about the turnovers that Iowa had. If they just hang on to the ball. Yeah. But Oregon goes to 8-1 and probably going to move to number 8 in the polls. In which, like I said, I will be with you guys tomorrow night after the selection committee makes its decision as Oregon fends off the Iowa Hawkeyes. And a game in which, this game wasn't even close. I mean, we kept watching this game. It was just a matter of Texas Tech finally executing. And this game could have been a lot uglier, you guys. Because, I mean, Texas Tech kept getting in the red zone and just wasn't able to convert into touchdowns, which is a tribute to BYU's defense. But this game could have been a lot worse. As, BYU and Bachmeier were just unable to get anything going offensively. Running the football, 23 of 38, 188, one touchdown, one interception. And then you look at Baron Morton, who was 17 of 32. Not impressive numbers, 219 in the score. But Cameron Dickey was able to go over 100. Jacoby Williams was right at 77. And they had 149 total yards on the ground. Look, Texas Tech is a contender. I mean, I think me and Brad said this way back before they played, when they played Utah and beat them in Salt Lake City. This is a good football team. And if it had not been for the number of injuries that they had, who knows how good this team could have been. Reggie Virgil, 3 catches, 54. Coy Eakin, 4 catches, 52. Then you look down at the defense. Jacob Rodriguez, 14 tackles. Cole Wisniewski, the big play man there, 10 tackles. And then I got to throw in hometown buddy Romello Height. Had 4 tackles a day and a tackle for a loss. DUB in the house. David Bailey also added 4 tackles. And Brendan Jordan had 5 tackles. As we continuously look at this football team and we say, what next? And I'm going to be honest, this team looks like it's going to strut right into the Big 12 championship game. BYU, we've all said that BYU has been somewhat overachieving, but it never surprises me where BYU could be. I mean, it just does not surprise me what they can do, how they do it, and so on and so forth. I just think, with 2 games left for the Texas Tech Red Raiders, they've got Central Florida and West Virginia remaining. They can cruise all way up into the Big 12. Just make sure they don't lose another one, and they'll be facing off either against BYU or Cincinnati because, you got these 2 teams that will be facing off against each other to determine in about a week to see which one's going to take that spot. So, definitely going to be looking forward to that. As Texas Tech just, manhandles BYU and shows why they're the favorites. And finally, we look at the Texas A&M Aggies over the 22nd ranked Missouri Tigers, 38-17. Do I really need to go through this? Because I sat here and I watched this game, and I watched how Texas A&M just kind of played with Mizzou. Because just like in LSU, there were opportunities that they squandered. And then in the second half, it was almost like Mike Elko said, look, man, y'all need to stop playing on DraftKings. I'm not saying that. Yeah, that's not what happened. But it's almost like he said, y'all need to stop playing with them. They don't belong in their own building. And after that, it was 14-0 at the half. But then it was just like, hey, look, Texas A&M just basically said, hey, This our building. Y'all go home. And I don't count them junk touchdowns Missouri put on now. I mean, don't get me wrong. They had a backup quarterback who, in my opinion, he going to be good. This guy has guts. He threw that ball down the field all night against A&M. His receivers didn't make no plays. They made a couple. But there were times I'm like, why is he throwing that ball down the field? And there were a couple of receivers didn't know what they needed to do with it. Missouri surprisingly rushed the ball for over 270 yards. If I could say that's a huge red flag with Missouri, because let's keep it in perspective. Texas A&M knew they were not going to let Notre Dame run it. Missouri was surprisingly able to run this thing. I think ultimately this would not have been a situation where I'm worried about this young man. This concerns me with A&M. But then we look back, and Marcel Reed, being who he is, had 221 yards tossing that thing, had 2 touchdown passes, also added 29 on the ground, including a 28-yard scramble. Dalton Brooks had a 48-yard scamper around one end, and between Reuben Owens having over 100 yards and 2 scores, this offense with the guys like KC Concepcion and Mario Craver also touching the football in the rushing game. This is what makes this team so scary, because they're so fast. They keep you on your toes. They make you sit back and really analyze what they're doing. They don't wait for you to come to them. They go to you. They make you cater to what they're doing. This is going to be a tough offense to stop. And everybody in the SEC is worried about everybody else. Meanwhile, this silent giant of the A&M Aggies is just marching along. Even Josh Pate is saying that the Alabama Crimson Tide are favored over Texas A&M. And I'm like, okay.
What the
Anybody else out there think Texas A&M going to beat Alabama in the SEC title game? So do I.
Damn, I'm good.
But as we see, the A&M Aggies go to 9-0. They continue to put up big numbers. They continue to have a dominant pass rush that is just absolutely suffocating, even though they only got 2 sacks on the day. I still think this is the best team in college football right now. Everybody keeps talking about Ohio State. Ohio State has their level of competition has not impressed me. And I know that's not what it's all about, but the reality of it is I'm not seeing enough from this team to warrant them being the number 1 overall team. The A&M Aggies have shown me, and I think a lot of people are making a mistake by overlooking them. It's going to be a huge mistake. But guys, let me know what you thought about week number 11, the upsets and so on and so forth. Did you think that catch in the Indiana Penn State was a catch? Do you think Georgia's just plain lucky? Sorry, Brad. Make sure you leave comments down below. And if you're a first-time subscriber, make sure you put your name down there. Hit that bell notification so that you can get updates on polls, shows, and shorts that I will be putting out there. Next, make sure you go to the Facebook page, Gridiron Gab Triple Option, so you can join the group as well as the page so you can get in on the fun. Finally, go to Mr. CeeLo at Instagram so you can keep up with all my in-season shenanigans that I will be caught up in. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.